what does it mean to be an autonomous person, to belong fully to myself? If I'm looking really honestly at my time here on Earth this go around, I have used a lot of pressure on myself through the years. Trying to look and sound like someone that fits in, trying to make other people comfortable, trying to make my life look like something that could be considered respectable, saying yes to phone calls, hangouts, and other social responsibilities because it seemed like a real and good person would do those things, even when I knew I didn't actually have the energy to give to those spaces. I would override what I longed to do instead, which is mostly to sit and work on my projects and ideas in the quiet. This is where I thrive, where I can create my most beautiful things. But I denied myself all of these quiet moments time and again and wondered why I felt alienated from my own life and my essence. Most of us have felt a sense of loneliness on this journey of being human. The experience of being a single individual is an inherent part of the joy and the misery of being alive. So what does it mean to be myself, my very own? How do I do it? I decided as the feeling of spring and the arrival of Aries season was getting closer that I would deliberately simplify everything I could. I'm not the same person I was when I moved to Sweden a couple of years ago, and I'm learning not to use those harsh words on myself to force me to do things I think I should do. This season is going to be a time of questioning those shoulds, those standards we have all put on ourselves. Standing in those small, quiet moments of choosing our own peace, our own validity, our own bravery to live a life that feels truest is one of the clearest ways to belong to ourselves. Rainer Maria Rilke once said that we welcome the new year full of things that have never been. And if you are somebody who follows a little bit more with the rhythms of the seasons and you happen to be in the Northern Hemisphere where spring is starting to arrive as we enter into this equinox energy and this Aries season beginning, I think a lot of us are feeling that. And this is really a season of new questions, new explorations, and really some deep honesty about who we're becoming and what that looks like. But I also think that sometimes with that feeling of urgency with a new year, it can feel a little bit overwhelming, like we should already know what we're going to make in the spring and summer months in the light of this part of the year and what new seasons need to come now that we are in that Aries energetics. And Rilke also wrote, and I'll just read this because I think it's really profound and very helpful when thinking about the astrological new year and this idea of spring and rebirth and renewal. Have patience with everything that remains unsolved in your heart. Try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books written in a foreign language. Do not now look for the answers. They cannot now be given to you because you could not live them. It is a question of experiencing everything. At present, you need to live the question. Perhaps you will gradually, without even noticing it, find yourself experiencing the answer some distant day. I love that. It takes the pressure off of this idea that we need to already have it figured out and to be embodying everything right in this very moment. And I think that's a really important mindset to bring into this Aries season, this eclipse season, this Mercury retrograde. This is going to be an Aries season to remember for many of us, a deep sense of realization and homecoming and aha moments and lightning bolt moments. And also a time where we realize that many of the things that we are understanding about ourselves that are coming into being, that are starting to take root and want expression in our lives, are going to take a little bit of time to fully understand, to fully embody, to fully allow to flower. And that is part of the thing that goes along with initiating energy, is that it is about the fact that we are just beginning, we are just opening a larger process, a larger question, a larger knowing. And that's a really innate quality that we work with whenever we're working with Aries energetics. Hello, my beautiful friends, my fellow space blobs, earth blobs, sparkly blobs, or whatever form you want to describe yourself as we move through and into this Aries season. My name is Sarah, and I'm here to create soft spaces where we can use storytelling and archetypes and energetics to come home to ourselves, feel more comforted in this very mysterious life that we are living here, and get ourselves on paths that feel really true to us and feel really connected to us. I wanted to just take some time here to explore Aries season. The last couple of years, I have been doing kind of an official Aries season video where we break down the archetype and go through all the pop astrology definitions and open it up. And this time I'm just going to take a bit of a softer approach. I am dealing with some pretty big fatigue and exhaustion as we come to the end of the winter up here in Sweden. And I'm having to just kind of show up the way that I am, very honestly, instead of trying to be ultra professional and on top of it. And I know I've been saying that at the beginning of every video, and I kind of need to say that because I need to remind myself that it's okay to be here as I am. So I just want today to be about exploring a few themes that I think will be quite pertinent to this Aries season, give ourselves a sense of breath. I will do a little card reading at the end, and I'll just mention a couple of the big energies moving through for this Aries season, just to get ourselves a little bit settled in and relaxed. I know many of us are going through seasons of big mystery, not knowing, maybe we're recovering from burnout, maybe we're dealing with some new questions, a shift in career, and both a sense that we're tired, not knowing what's next, and also very excited. And I think Aries season is going to continue a lot of those themes. So I just want to feel through today with you all, have a really cozy time, and just relax into this new season. Aries energy and the Aries archetype is all about this idea of I am. It's the first sign of the zodiac. It represents this cardinal fire energy from nothing into something, from the creative void into something. It's quite a big archetype when you really think about it. It's almost so large, and it seems so simple that it's really quite complicated underneath the surface in a way. What does it even mean to be, to belong to oneself, to be oneself, to exist as an individual? These are questions that I think are difficult to answer, and philosophers have spent decades and centuries trying to answer this question. What does it mean to exist? What does it mean to be? How do we know when we're being our truest self? What is the true self? All of those questions. And I obviously won't be able to answer that question definitively today, but I think those philosophical themes are very strong when we're working with the Aries archetype as the initiator and as that sense of I am in the world. And the question that came up for me right away at the beginning of this Aries season is how to belong to oneself. What does that look like to belong to ourselves? You know, we talk about things like vision boards and living our truest life and finding our purpose and being on purpose and all of those great things. And yet it's kind of still this question of like, what does that actually feel like? How does that look in a day when you have responsibilities and you have to move through life and you have to, you know, there's a lot of moving parts to a day, and not every single one of those parts always feels like us just being ourselves and floating along and getting to be, in my case, the space blob that I'd like to be. Even though I'm trying to invite that more into more and more spaces in my life, it isn't always there. And one of the things that I came to as I was thinking about this is that for me to feel like I'm being myself isn't about controlling my scenarios, controlling myself or the world. In fact, that's when I feel the furthest from myself. I think that mostly it's about listening to ourselves, actually listening to ourselves and not steamrolling ourselves. And most of us have been taught to not listen to ourselves particularly carefully. And I know many of us in this space do. I know many of us in this space have spent years practicing hearing ourselves and coming home to ourselves and living lives that feel truer to ourselves and learning to express that. most of us in this space, I think, are on that journey and have been exploring this for a long time. But I think belonging to ourselves, the crucial part there is, are we really hearing when there's a part of us that's saying, I am very tired, or I need space, or I need to slow down on this project, or I need to move things around, or I need to express something to another person about what I'm needing today. It kind of comes down to just this very basic and yet brave and courageous thing of choosing to hear and listen to those things. And there's been such a moral kind of wash put over this idea of being self-centered through the years, because there is that negative side of individuality that has to do with just getting everything that you can, and this fear of this kind of narcissistic, consumeristic society that says that if you're too self-centered, it means that you are going to be a horrible person. And yet, for most of us really hearing ourselves, it's going to feel and look like very simple accommodations and very basic, just honoring of our humanness and our spirit and our needs. And that isn't morally wrong, right? In fact, it brings us into deeper and truer communion with ourselves and with others, and doing right by ourselves, and therefore doing right by a lot more people in our lives and in the world as well. So just wanted to throw that out there, that Aries season is a lot about how we belong to ourselves. And I think the easiest and simplest way to start kind of playing with that is just noticing when we're actually really listening to ourselves and our needs and what we're needing and what we're longing for, and taking them seriously and honoring them as very important ingredients in our lives. And that brings me to the next theme that was coming up for me as we move through this Aries season, which is that it takes a lot of courage to be ourselves in the world. It is definitely not a thing that feels very safe. There's a deep vulnerability in bringing our truest selves to all the spaces, the unmasked self, the open self, that kind of innocent, wide open version of ourselves that just trusts implicitly. And I think that's a really crucial part of Aries energetics. The stereotypes in pop astrology are going to focus a lot on that kind of warrior, Mars-based energy of the combative, opinionated, loud fire sign that just goes out there and does everything, or this immature baby who's just wanting to get its way all the time. But if we peel kind of back some of those layers and we think about this idea of the first one to step out and experience something, of the experience of being a baby in the world, coming into the world, these are things that are deeply courageous. The amount of things we have to learn and understand and take in order to kind of embody that Aries energy is extremely powerful, and is deeply, deeply vulnerable. And I think sometimes, when we're thinking about something as basic as being myself, walking through the world, saying, this is my I am energy, I exist as a person, it feels so basic that I think sometimes we brush it off as something that's going to just be pretty easy and intrinsic, when in fact, most of us spend our lives figuring out what that looks like and feels like. And it takes a lot of emotional maturity to bring our truest I am energy into our relationships, into our environments, because it's not combative. It's not about, trying to get everything for ourselves and hoard a whole bunch of energy and be in charge and have everything our way. In fact, I think to really activate that Aries I am energy is to be deeply honest about what it is that actually brings us joy and brings us peace and helps us be the people that we are in the world. And I think it's just a really beautiful time to explore that. What are the innocent parts of you that kind of just want to be and express in life, without all the worries about making a career, making a living, being in charge? What are the parts of you that want to let others in your life know what you want and need? What does it sound like? Working with that behind the scenes, I think, without even needing to necessarily share it right away, but just taking the time to really think about who you are now in this new year, in this new season, and how you want that to lead you forward through this next astrological year, and kind of stripping it back to the basics and really getting in touch with those true parts of yourself. A book that I really recommend for this actually is Who You Were Meant to Be by Lindsay C. Gibson. She also does work for children of emotionally immature parents. A lot of people have very much connected with her work, but this book is all about kind of getting back to our true selves of like who we are, and that we don't need to constantly try and change it. So great recommendation if you're wanting something to kind of work with during this Aries season, read, play with. I recommend that highly. This Aries season is really unique in that we are moving through an eclipse season and a Mercury retrograde, and just moving through some very powerful renewal energies. So this is not only that astrological new year, but we're also setting up for that next 6-month cycle with the eclipses, and also that refresh energy, that integration energy of Mercury retrograde, which goes from April 1st to April 25th, so a little bit into Taurus season. But this is just a really powerful time of thinking about what it is that we really want to enact in our lives and who we really are. And a lot of those questions have to do with all the rules we have put on ourselves about what it has to look like for each of us to exist. You know, the things that maybe we don't express to our family members or other people around us, even though they might be very understanding. It's very possible in expressing our needs and wishes, they could be very understanding, but a lot of times we have rules for how we have to show up, what that has to look like, what we have to maintain, what we have to sustain. And a lot of us are going to be reflecting on those things through both the eclipses, which we have a Libra full moon lunar eclipse on March 25th, and the new moon solar eclipse in Aries on April 8th. We also have that Mercury retrograde going through Aries for a good chunk of the month. So this is just a really beautiful time to be thinking about those rules, thinking about the internal demands that we're putting on ourselves, constantly refining, reflecting, getting rid of things that aren't working for us, and starting to think about what this next 6 months is going to mean to us. So there's a lot of themes of that moving through as we do this. I just wanted to pull a couple of cards here at the end of our little cozy chat today and see what wants to come through. In so many ways, sitting here for this Aries season, there's this unformed feeling for me about this new year. It's just, it's sitting there with all its energy, all its unimaginable horizon elements that we haven't been able to even bring into our dreams and visions yet, because we can't even fathom them. And I'm feeling that very deeply. And it's even a little bit tricky to put words to it as I'm sitting here. I was trying to think about how to talk about this Aries season, because it's so much about getting really, truly honest, and then life looking very different as it unfolds over the coming months. Seven of Cups. I haven't seen Seven of Cups in ages, but I love that this card and this energy is coming through. This is a really deeply spiritual and important energy to work with, and can be very, very helpful in figuring out what are illusions and what are true dreams, what are true things we really do want to allow to move through our lives. And Four of Pentacles. Let's work with this, because you know what I see here is a bit of sitting in the non-doing aspect of our processes of thinking and feeling. And it's really interesting because, you know, we think about Aries energy as doing, initiating, making things happen, which is definitely a part of fire energy. Fire energy moves through the world. It creates. It's the spiritual element that makes things from ideas and moves things through the world and moves energy through the world. That is absolutely true. But fire energy also needs to be sustained by truth, by something that feels true to our hearts and our spirits and our souls. You know, fire energy, when you think about Aries too, it starts at the top of the head here in the physical. We go through the whole body, starting in Aries at the top of the body, and we end Pisces with the feet. So we're also incorporating new ideas, incorporating new dreams. And for me, this is a really big moment of reflection and really taking stock of things. And it's important. So Seven of Cups is a really interesting card. I know some people feel a little bit strange working with this card, maybe a little intimidated or scared of it, because it's quite mysterious. You have this dark figure here, and we're facing back with its back to us, looking at all of these cups, and some of them are filled with beautiful things, glory, ideas, and other things might be a little more dangerous, like the snake or the dragon. It's all these ideas and formulations, right? And part of what I've always felt on this energetic level, working with something like the Seven of Cups, is this is a really important time to be moving through our dreams and thinking about which of these cups we really want to pick up. Which ones are really feeding our souls? Which ones are really true to our longings, to who we are? And which ones are the ones that, yes, they look good on the surface. You know, everybody understands, oh, that's your career and it makes sense. And oh, now we don't have to judge or shame you. You know, what are the things that we feel like we keep having to enact and play with? Seven of Cups is very much about entering dream space and resolving and understanding things from the subconscious realm and from the spirit realm. So this is a really great time to reflect on your dreams, reflect on your nudges, reflect on your intuitive impulses that are telling you when something doesn't feel like it's quite who you are. And to bring that energy and bring that knowing into the world and allow it to slowly give birth over these first couple of months of the astrological new year. Now, Four of Pentacles, I think, is actually one of the most important energies. And I think the thing is that we often resist this one because it looks like somebody who's just scared of forward motion and resisting it, which is a part of this card. However, I think when it comes to being ourselves, moving into the world as ourselves, it makes sense to take the time to sit still for a moment and look around. There are going to be parts of ourselves that feel like this is going to be our destruction, that this is going to ruin everything, that we're going to lose all of our safety and security. And there are parts of ourselves that won't feel ready. There are parts of ourselves that are going to need extra love. And the Four of Pentacles is really this moment of acknowledgement and understanding that we are changing and we are shifting form. And it's a time to take a survey and look around. Now, part of that is looking at the voices that are holding us back, the ego voices that are kind of describing all the things that are going to destroy us, and questioning those, questioning the prisons we put around ourselves, questioning the rules and structures we put around ourselves, saying, I can't be myself because I will get in trouble, you know, just looking at those. But that is such a powerful moment. That is the moment when things change, right? It's not in the moment where we're running around out in the world doing everything. It's in the moment when we get honest with ourselves and we say, I'm noticing I have this rule about how I have to be, about who I have to show up as, about what I have to sustain. That's really interesting. So both of these are very much about just feeling through our psyche and our soul and getting really honest about what we want to enact and enable in the world, how we want to use our I am energy, our vital energy. And like I said, any fire energy is going to need to be cared for and tended. That flame, that lantern needs to be cared for and tended to by our truest selves and not just by meaningless busy action through the world. So the most impactful Aries season you can have is one that is deeply honest with yourself, that's coming home to yourself, where you really are caring for yourself deeply by sitting with yourself and hearing yourself and honoring that you have preferences and desires and interests that are all yours and that they don't need to be pushed under the rug or ignored, but are in fact very, very important and vital to you being here in the world and being a part of the way that we change this whole thing. As cheesy as it sounds, it really is true. And that's what this Aries season is going to be about. And it's so interesting those energies came up. I haven't seen them for a little while in our readings, and seeing them there just gave me a spark of inspiration, just reflecting on things. If you enjoy tarot, if you enjoy kind of going through processes and feeling through, I would love to see you over on my Patreon. We are moving through Journey Through the Major Arcana. It started on March 8th and is going to be continuing for the next few months as we move through all 22 cards of the Major Arcana. I have a new session coming out every Friday, so you can catch up with us and watch all the episodes that are available now, and as well as join us for the rest of the journey. It's a really soulful way of enacting a sense of self-trust and depth in the world, as well as improving our tarot practices and feeling very comforted and centered in any tarot practice we do, taking some of that fear and worry and stress out of the equation and bringing in more soul and more soul song into our tarot practices. So I'd love to see you for that. You can also find me on my Instagram or my website, and I'd love it if you stick around here. We are going to be talking through these big eclipse energies, through the Mercury retrograde in the coming weeks. So I'm going to be adding layers to this conversation as we go, and just figuring out, we'll see how my energy is the next time we meet. But every time is a surprise to me as I work through my own coming home to myself. And I'd be happy to talk about that more in detail for any of you who want to do a little coffee and chat. So let me know. Are you interested in having another coffee and chat where I talk a little bit more about some of the challenges that I'm moving through right now? I'd be happy to do that for those of us who want a little cozy time. Regardless, I love it when you stick around here. I hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Have a beautiful beginning to the astrological new year and Aries season. Happy birthday to all the Aries out there. And I will see you all so very, very soon.